Hello, and welcome to episode 128 of Magic Rays of Light, a podcast exploring the world of Apple TV and so much more. I'm your host, Devon Dundee. Sigmund is away this week, so I have the pleasure of being joined by Mac Stories contributor, Jonathan Reed. Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Hey, Devon, it's great to be here.
Listeners may recognize Jonathan from the most recent episode of Mac Stories Unwind as well. You're just kind of all over the Mac Stories podcast universe right now.
I know, yeah, just like cameoing here, cameoing there, uncredited cameo, as Rob Knight said to me on Mastodon earlier on today.
Uncredited, I love it. We've got a lot of fun stuff to discuss this week. We're going to highlight the debut of Apple Original Food docuseries Omnivore. We're going to take another look at Fly Me to the Moon in theaters now. But Jonathan, I wanted to start with a few questions for you because I know based on some conversations that we've had that you picked up an Apple Vision Pro when it launched in Europe recently. So I wanted to ask about your experience there, but I wanted to start with just asking you, what's it been like the past few months as it's been out in the United States and people have been talking about it not having access to Apple Vision Pro?
Yeah, I mean, it has been frustrating. I think that it's that thing of all the people you know, all your friends, sort of, or not all of them, or some of them are getting to play with it. And obviously, you and Sigmund have been talking about it. You know, Federico and John, and over at Mac Stories, and yeah, it's frustrating to be left out. I managed to sort of get over it, though. I think I wasn't too frustrated. I think it was. I remember when the iPhone was launched. And it was launched in the US first, and I think it waited another 6 to 9 months before it came out in the UK. And I think comparatively, I was much more frustrated with the iPhone release because it was that was a really revolutionary sort of release. So it was not as bad as that, but yeah, I've been really wanting to get my hands on it and check out what everyone's been talking about really, and just take it for a test drive myself. So yeah.
It's funny, Sigmund and I have been talking about it, and of course Federico has one, and then listening to Connected, the guys there have one, and there's so many Apple Vision Pros that have made their way over to your side of the pond for podcasting stuff and stuff like that, and so almost I just forgot that it wasn't available there, and so it's cool that it finally is there and that you've been able to try it out. I know Nelian got to try it out and is going to be discussing it on Comfort Zone before too long, so that's been really cool to see. So having kind of watched other people and hear about their experiences, what inspired you to actually go out and buy one?
I think just to try it out properly, really. I think you can obviously get the demo in store, and I think that's really good for people who are maybe casual users or casual Apple fans, or just wanting to see what it's all about. But for someone like me, just like you, we know we want to get a new Apple device and dig into it and really push the boundaries and see what it's all about. So I just knew that was not going to be enough, and it's a scripted tour. That I saw people in the Apple Store, they were literally scrolling an iPad with a script notes in it because they're literally running off a script. So I knew that wouldn't be enough, and I was open to keeping it, but I knew that there is that 2-week kind of grace period to try these things out, and I've done that before, and I'm sure many listeners have too. There is that kind of, it's almost like a 2-week rental window that you can cheekily have one. If you take care of it, you can return it, but there's always the temptation to keep it, of course. So that was my inspiration for getting it, really, and also I'm a big, as people listening will know who've heard from me before, I'm a big movie fan, big TV fan, and I really wanted to test that out, what it was like to watch the cinema essentially in the Apple Vision Pro, which was, I think, technically stunning. It was an incredible experience watching movies. I think that without apart from the sort of knowledge that it was sat on my head because of the feet, I could feel it. It was really incredible. I think the immersive stuff is just a real amazing selling point. But I think that's also kind of the problem. I think that the content side is a real slam dunk, but there's not really enough of it. I don't know how you sort of feel about that. I know that obviously there's there's content, just traditional streaming content that you can watch, and after we record here, I'm gonna put on the Vision Pro to watch the finale of The Acolyte, which I'm looking forward to. Sat on Tatooine, and there's definitely some great stuff there, but it just really feels that there's maybe needs some more stuff. I managed to watch a film while I was doing some laundry, so I pinned the movie onto a wall and started doing laundry in the bedroom. And that's, there's things like that which are really great. I've started digging into the apps, but it's for my way of working. I'm a graphic designer. I work on a Mac. I work in Adobe Illustrator, Photoshop, and so forth. And yeah, it's not really sort of fitting in there. I've been having a few issues with the comfort fit. I'm feeling the weight really of it. So I have been really enjoying it. I think long term, I don't know if I could really justify getting it. I'm interested to hear from you, actually. We've briefly discussed this, but on a day-to-day basis, like, how are you using your Vision Pro now? Because I know you do use it quite a bit.
I do. And I think the difference maybe between your workflow and mine is that I have always gotten a ton of my work done on the iPad.
Yeah.
And so it just translates really, really well to the Apple Vision Pro, because a lot of those apps either run their iPad versions or they've been, of course, transferred over to Vision OS. And so for me, it's just like a really beefed up version of what I've always been doing, where now I have like a bunch of iPads floating around and can multitask. So that's kind of what I've been using it for. I take it to work with me and just kind of spread my windows out around the office and use those iPad apps. But I think for someone who mainly works on the Mac, unless you're really able to take advantage of that Mac virtual display, which depends on your iCloud account and of course all that kind of stuff, then Vision Pro, getting work done on it may be more difficult, which sounds like might be what you're running into. Have you used the Mac virtual display at all?
I've used it a bit. The problem is that it doesn't feel like it's quite as good as the studio display, or it isn't to me anyway. It's not really the full 5K, and the work that I do can be quite precise and really, I'm zooming into things a lot to really, craft sort of icons and so forth, and it doesn't really work that as well for that. I could see other people getting other work done on it, and that's great. And it is nice to use the apps in there. I think that the problem is, I just think, well, I could just do it on my iPad, and it's easier than putting the Vision Pro on. And for me as well, the fit's not been as great. I definitely have been feeling it a lot, and I'm kind of jealous of people who have been totally fine with it, like yourself maybe. So yeah, I've been enjoying it. I think one of my favorite experiences was I sat and watched my favorite Marvel movie, The Winter Soldier, in Avengers Tower. Oh. It's great. It was that sort of experience is really good. My wife tried it out as well, and I have a video of her just going, ooh, 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 wow, ooh. and I think it does, it speaks to the fact that this is an amazing experience. I think it's more like the content and what's actually on it, which I think needs to be improved. But as a first generation device, I do still think it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. The content has been a slow roll, and I'll be interested to see if that speeds up with the international rollout now. Maybe that we'll have more content as more people have their hands on it. I don't know for sure. Apple's mentioned some things that are coming, but we don't have dates yet, so we'll have to wait and see. One last question I want to ask you. Have you had the experience of experiencing your own content on Apple Vision Pro, like any home videos or photos, things like that? Have you tried that out?
Yeah, actually, that was another thing that was fantastic. I'd already recorded a few months back a couple of videos of my daughter, she's like 2.5 now, and it was she was just getting really confident in running, and I had a couple of videos of her running sort of towards the camera. My wife was just sort of in front of the camera, and she'd run into her arms, and blowing that up really big I think was a genuinely moving experience, because I wouldn't say it feels like you're there, but it feels way more than just watching the video on an iPad screen or even the Apple TV screen. And there's definitely something in there which I think that in the future, I think when the technology evolves and a lot more videos will be able to be taken as spatial videos, this is going to really add an extra dimension to it. So yeah, that was really impressive, actually.
I think the element of experiencing your own memories in there is something that's just hard to describe and translate to someone who hasn't experienced it, because you can't really put words to what the value add is, but there's just some extra emotional element to it. And I'll say, I know you probably don't want to put beta software on it since you're kind of on the fence about keeping it and may end up returning
Oh, I
it.
did.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah.
Have you spatialized any of your own pictures?
I haven't managed to do that yet. No, I only put it on yesterday, so I've been trying out a couple of other things first, but I think that's probably something I'll be doing tomorrow. But I'm looking forward to doing that. Is that something you've tried?
Oh yeah, it's really good. Like there's a couple pictures that there are elements that it can get wrong and it's actually kind of funny and you put it back to 2D and leave it. But most pictures it works really, really well for, and it's pretty incredible. So yeah, I'd recommend you try that out because just on the personal element there, it really is a fun and enjoyable experience for sure.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing your very early impressions of Apple Vision Pro, and hope you enjoy the rest of that trial period as you're figuring out what your future is with Vision OS and spatial computing. One series that we both checked out this week, I don't know if you watched it on Apple Vision Pro. I didn't get the chance to, unfortunately.
No, I could have done actually, but no, I didn't get around to that, no.
Well, maybe future episodes, but we did both check out this week's highlight, the debut of Apple Original series Omnivore. This global series takes viewers on an immersive journey into the world of food, exploring the profound beauty and intricate complexities of the human experience through the lens of the key ingredients that connect us all.
Food is never just food. It's a fundamental thread that defines us, connects us, and shapes our world. Cooking is what makes us human. Behind each bite, there's always something bigger at work. In a world often divided, we should celebrate the things that bind us.
This 8-part docuseries is created and hosted by world-renowned chef Rene Redzepi of Nomad, considered one of the greatest restaurants in the world. It's developed by Kari Joji Fukunaga and executive produced by Matt Golding and Mateo Willis. It takes us all over the world with each episode exploring a different ingredient that has a major global impact. Jonathan, you had a chance to check out Omnivore this week. What'd you think of it?
Yeah, I really thought this wouldn't be for me, and I mainly checked it out knowing that I was coming on the podcast so we could talk about it. And I'm really glad that I did, because I'm really not big on cooking or food shows. Just not my sort of thing. Great British Bake Off, no, not that bothered about it. All the other sort of MasterChef and so forth, I've never really been into them. But I was absolutely fascinated by the first episode, which was based around Chile, or Chile, as I think we generally refer to it as. But that was something I learned as well, was that Chile is also normally pronounced Chile, just like the country, which I thought was fascinating. And it was a really fascinating journey into sort of, like you say, like the human experience through the lens of the key ingredients. And it is not necessarily really about, at least from the first episode, about cooking and making this recipe or that recipe. It's about everything that comes before that. I think the one in particular is we followed this family who harvest paprika peppers, and it was a very generational story about how they harvest these many, like hundreds of thousands, even maybe certainly thousands of these peppers. And it was really kind of moving story as to these people who were into food farming for many years. And that was just one section of it. Then we got to look at these other peppers across the world and how they were being made and what they go into. There was the story of the Tabasco family, which was fascinating. And yeah, it was a really interesting story, and really had the human side of food ingredients, which I really connected with. I think within like the first 5 to 10 minutes was an instant connection with this show, and I was quite surprised by that. Well, how about you, Devon?
Yeah, I agree with you. This isn't typically the type of show I would just watch on a whim. Cooking shows aren't usually necessarily my thing. But I think something that I found personally in my time with Apple TV Plus is that it's pushed me into genres that I wouldn't have tried before. And usually I find that there's something there that it offers me that I just wasn't expecting. And So I really enjoyed this first episode about the chilies or peppers or whatever you call them, especially that segment about the Tabasco family. I was intrigued. I had no idea. I used Tabasco all the time and didn't know where it came from. So that was really cool. But I liked that first episode so much, I just had to dive into episode 7, coffee. And that's just a topic that I'm intrigued by, something I drink most days, even when maybe I necessarily shouldn't. But it was a really fascinating episode that took a little bit of a different take. They spent more time in one area rather than kind of jumping all around. And so really the episode was focused on Rwanda and kind of how coffee production came there, the impact that it's had, and the farmers there, and kind of offering a path forward, and even a little bit of a call to action for coffee drinkers around the world to maybe be a little more thoughtful about where their coffee's coming from, and that they're supporting, companies that are being fair to farmers and making sure that the economic benefits are being passed on to them. So I thought that was an interesting take. The whole series, of course, is just about the way that food brings us all together, right? And I thought that was a really cool concept, and it really did make me feel connected with people around the world who I'll never meet, but who are involved in the food that I get to eat and enjoy. And I have an opportunity to hopefully have a positive impact on their lives and, the way that I purchase and consume those things. So I was actually surprised by what an emotional experience that really was. I thought it would just be kind of an interesting show about food, right? And maybe learn some fun facts, but really it was about the people and the power of the food and the impact that it has on those people. And so I thought that was a really cool way to approach this. It's very clear that the people behind it are very thoughtful about food and spend a lot of time thinking about these things that maybe we take for granted. It's just something on the plate in front of us that we take in because we enjoy it. But really, there's so much more to it than that. And it's an opportunity to learn about that and just think on it. So it's a show about food, but really it's a show about us and the way that food connects us.
Yeah, totally agree.
On a little bit of a technical level, of course, it's beautifully shot. And again, there's beautiful shots of the food, but even more so, there's beautiful shots of people working with the food and getting to see where it comes from. And I just love the animations for each episode. Around each theme, they have these very custom animations to show where things come from and different varieties, of course, of peppers. And they had that scale of how hot peppers are, and you could just see it going up and up and up as they went.
Yeah, that was incredible. Which I did wonder, every time I see that scale now, I just think of Conan O'Brien's appearance on Hot Ones from a couple of months back, which... if anyone listening hasn't seen this, I should check out the Hot Ones YouTube channel and Conan O'Brien's appearance on that, because it is insane. But the Scoville scale, it was interesting to know where the Scoville scale came from as well, which they briefly covered. So there was lots of information to take in, as well as just delving into that sort of human connection to food, which I loved. And like you say, the animations were great. They're a really beautiful title sequence, as always seems to be the case with Apple TV Plus shows. I love how every title sequence of pretty much every show is incredibly beautiful, and this is no exception. It was interesting. I didn't know this until I started watching it, and then my wife pointed out that the narrator, Renee Redzepi, who runs Nomad, the world's best restaurant named several times, that's in Denmark. He's kind of a mercurial character, slightly controversial at times, but in the second season of The Bear, Marcus goes to Denmark to sort of expand his skills and get some experience with the actor Will Poulter playing another chef. And apparently it's loosely based on this restaurant Nomad, and Will Poulter actually spent a couple of weeks in the restaurant sort of shadowing. So that was kind of an interesting connection, which I totally didn't realise until my wife pointed it out to me. So if for all those Bear fans out there is definitely a connection here to this show. But yeah, I really liked this first episode that I saw, and definitely going to be checking out the rest.
Yeah, that's cool. I didn't realize that. And of course, the show does spend some time in Nomad as well, if you want to see what it's like to go there. A very exclusive place, not an experience a lot of people get to have, but one that obviously the chef spends a lot of time thinking about and crafting, and the show kind of gets to capture a little bit of that as well.
Yeah, well, they're actually closing down at the end of the year as well, I read, permanently, because the cost the costs are not working out well for them apparently. So they're closing it down for I think a delivery sort of version of it. I'm not entirely sure, but yeah, which is also quite sad as well. And I think you can see sometimes the hints of that in the show about the human cost and the actual price cost of things, and how that is now a bit of a problem with mass production of things, which it was touched upon with the Paprika family. Lots of layers to this show. Really liked it.
Yeah, lots to learn. A world that's constantly changing, and maybe Mr. Redzepi has a future in TV if he's not going to be doing the Nomad Restaurant anymore. Regardless, if you'd like to check it out, all 8 episodes of Omnivore are streaming this Friday across all of your screens on Apple TV+. Now let's talk some Apple TV news, starting with hardware. Jonathan, you want to kick us off?
Sure. This week, Apple stealth released the HomePod Mini in a new color, Midnight, which is made with 100% recycled mesh fabric. So this was kind of a subtle release this week. We've not seen it in person yet, but I don't know how different the black is to the current space grey. But I think is the recycled mesh fabric, is that new?
I couldn't find it on the current HomePod Mini environmental webpage.
Yeah.
So I think that might be a new thing that they're doing. Regardless, with the new color, they want you to know it for sure, right? That's part of the selling of the product alongside the midnight color. I'm tempted to pick one of these up just to compare it to my space gray HomePod Mini and just to see what the color difference is, because I don't think it's that different based on the photos, but maybe next to each other you could tell.
I mean, if it's a new one that's now recycled mesh fabric, then I can see why they've maybe done that, and they've taken the opportunity to change the colour. So fair enough if they're doing that. And more recycled materials is always a good thing.
Any updates to the HomePod line, even if they're just colors, I'm always happy to see. Of course, we'd love to eventually see some improvements to the hardware of the HomePod Mini, but based on this refresh, probably won't be anytime soon. Insta360 has released the Flow Pro, the first gimbal that includes support for Dock Kit. The gimbal integrates with the camera app and third-party apps on the iPhone to track subjects and keep them in frame. It also features 360-degree rotation, a built-in selfie stick and tripod, and one-tap pairing with the iPhone via NFC. It's available for $149 on the Insta360 website, which we will link in the show notes. Now, Dock Kit is an interesting technology. It came out at WWDC last year, or that's when it was announced anyway. I think this is only the second product that I've seen anyway that actually integrates with it. But it's really cool the way you can just instant pair your phone with the device, and then they're just communicating with each other from then on, and it keeps you in frame. We've seen it on a tripod mount style thing from Belkin before, but this is a full-on gimbal, which I think has some interesting implications maybe for vloggers, people making that type of content.
Yeah.
Or even if you're going on like maybe a family vacation and you want just the best quality home videos that you can get, this might be an interesting accessory to pick up as you go, because it just does so much of that framing work for you. So
yeah,
cool to see this technology expanding, and of course we hope to see it continue to expand into more accessories in the future.
Yeah. I think another thing would be quite good for it is FaceTime calls as well, which of course you can use center stage at the minute, but if you want to sort of move all around the room while you're talking to someone on FaceTime, it'd be quite handy for that. And I think interesting that links into the next piece of news which we have, which is 9to5Mac uncovering a new touch-oriented interface in the latest tvOS beta called Plasterboard. The interface is early in development, but does feature a lock screen with a keypad for entering a passcode, adding further evidence that tvOS is being adapted to work on a touchscreen device. And I think we're just going to get continual sprinklings of bits of information about this so-called HomePod with a screen along the way. And I'm here for it. When one of them comes out, I am 100% getting one of them. And I'm really interested to see how this all works out.
I'm always jealous of my friends who have the Amazon or Google smart screens in their kitchens with all the photos and stuff. One of my favorite Apple TV features is the screensavers with the photos. I just love to have those going in the background all the time. And to have a device that could do that, and then of course also be used for FaceTime and follow you around and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It'd be great to see. So yeah, I'm excited to see this continue to pop up in the back end, and we'll see what comes of it. But like you, I'm pretty much lined up with my wallet ready to go whenever it does come.
Yeah, definitely.
In other news, in the latest development of the company's ever-growing advertising strategy, Apple has signed a deal with the ad tech company Taboola to power ads in Apple News and Stocks. Now, this is a part of the company that we've heard a lot about recently, some hires, some rumors about ads expanding into other services, including potentially Apple TV Plus. Of course, Apple's been doing ad stuff with Friday Night Baseball and MLS Season Pass, and so this is a big area of interest for the company and an investment that they've been making. So it's interesting to see the company pairing up with a third party for some existing ad spaces. Apple News is an app I spend quite a bit of time with, so I actually do care about the quality of the ads there, and I hope this is an improvement in the experience, or at the very least, equal experience of the type of ads that they have here. But it's just interesting to see them partnering with someone else, and this could be a sign either that they're just going to outsource this sort of thing, or that it's just such a big area for the company that they're going to need some help filling those spaces, and that really is going to be a bigger thing. So what interests me about this, first of all, just the quality of the ads in the current services, but also if this has an impact on the strategy for Apple TV Plus going forward.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'll be interested to see how it affects Apple TV potentially. I wonder if they've, and I suspect this might have been the case, is that they've tried to sort of do it themselves with the Apple News at least and Stocks, and in bringing good quality adverts, and maybe it's not been as successful as they'd wanted. My personal opinion on the Apple News ads is that they are very poor quality and certainly need to be improved, and bringing in an expert in that field is maybe what they're going to do. And if that means improved ads when we're using the app, then I'm all for that.
It's an interesting area of the company continuing to shift and kind of figure out what the future is. And so we'll, of course, be keeping an eye on it. But speaking of Apple TV Plus, we have some exciting Apple original news, starting with release news that we've all been very much looking forward to.
Yes, Severance is coming back. We have the date finally. Its second season will debut on Friday, January the 17th on Apple TV Plus, kicking off what is surely going to be a thrilling 10-episode second season. And a bittersweet announcement, I think. Exciting to have the announcement, but then that date is a long way away. In fact, it is the 17th today as we record this, which means we're still 5 months away from the second season premiere, which seems to be a long time, but hopefully we'll go quickly and we'll be able to dig into the second season and see what happened after that dramatic cliffhanger. I'm super excited. I'm going to ask you if you're excited, but I think I know the answer.
Yeah, I absolutely can't wait. And I think it speaks to the demand for this series that Apple's announcing its return so early, but they just know that they can kind of ride that hype and really, really build up the anticipation. We were expecting a teaser, and instead we just got the date announcement. So there's really not even any new footage from season 2 to discuss, but everyone's talking about it because we're all just so excited.
There was actually some footage of season 2, not very much, but there was a little bit, and we got a quick glimpse of Gwendolyn Christie from Game of Thrones and Star Wars. Seems to be appearing in this next season, which I wasn't aware of, and I'm very excited to see her because she's a really great actress. But yeah, it was pretty light on footage for sure, and I suspect they'll keep drip feeding that over the next 5 months just to get us even more excited.
Yeah, well, it's safe to say that we are, and we'll of course be keeping an eye out for any little tidbits that come out and be sure to share them. Now, while we still don't have a definite date, the director's cut of Napoleon seems to be inching closer to release. Ridley Scott's cut of the film popped up in the Motion Picture Association of America's rating database last week, predictably earning an R rating. So a little bit of movement there, more evidence that this cut does exist and seems to be moving through the pipeline. Now, of course, getting a rating doesn't necessarily mean that it's coming anytime soon, but it seems like the kind of thing that Apple could really just put out at any time in the TV app as a bonus, and Napoleon fans, and I know Ridley Scott fans, always want to see the director's cut of his film. So I think this is one that could draw some attention. I personally have been on the record as saying I want to see a longer version of this movie. I think it would benefit from being longer. So I'm happy to see it making some progress.
And in casting news, Simone Ashley has come aboard the film F1 in an undisclosed role. So we'll keep an eye on that, see if her role gets revealed nearer to the premiere.
Yeah, keeping lots of things under wraps for that movie. Again, being announced a year before its release, so plenty of time to let some of those details slip. Mireille Enos has joined the cast of For All Mankind Season 5 as Celia Boyd, a member of the Peacekeeper Security Force on Mars. We'll be heading back to Mars before too long with For All Mankind Season 5 and some new cast members that will be there as well. In other news, speaking with comicbook.com, Time Bandits co-creator Jermaine Clement revealed that Season 2 of the series is currently being written, saying, "We are actually writing a second season, but it depends on if people watch the first season. If no one watches it, we throw it away in a bin." So some transparency there on the behind-the-scenes process of Time Bandits. Of course, that's coming next week on Apple TV+, so fingers crossed it gets some good viewership and that second season doesn't get thrown away in a bin. But I know that's one Sigmund's very excited about and very excited to talk about next week on this very show.
I love Jermaine. He's so great. So a couple of nice renewals for Apple Originals. The comedy Loot, starring Maya Rudolph, has been renewed for a third season. No word on your much-desired 24-episode season. But as well as that, Presumed Innocent has been renewed for a second season as well, and it will be centred around a brand new case, which I really like the idea of. I think anthology series are really great, so I think that's a really good move on Apple's part.
I'm trying to avoid any and all spoilers for Presumed Innocent because we're so close to the end now, and I don't know how it ends. Apple's kept that very well under wraps, but listener Tim Chatton, who's appeared on the show before, pointed out on Mastodon that there's actually a sequel to the book.
Oh.
I think it's actually a trilogy, and so that could be the source material. I don't know for sure. I thought this was going to be a miniseries, but I think it's just proven too popular not to continue on, and so to get a renewal even before the finale I think is cool to see, and I just think that finale is going to be a bombshell. However it goes, whoever did it, it's going to be interesting to find out before too long.
Yeah.
And finally, Silo is headed to San Diego Comic-Con. On Saturday, July 27th, Tested.com editor-in-chief Adam Savage will sit down with a panel of creatives behind the series, including Rebecca Ferguson, Common, showrunner Graham Yost, author Hugh Howey, and surprise special guests to discuss what fans can look forward to in the show's second season. So very cool to see Silo coming to Comic-Con. Of course, what we really want to know, in addition to all the behind-the-scenes stories and cool tidbits from the creators, we want to know the date, and Comic-Con is for trailers, Jonathan, so I really want to see a trailer for season 2.
Yeah, I hope we do. It's a strange one. They've not actually announced any date yet. They've announced the date for Severance. But I would also just assume that it's coming not too long after that, maybe September, October time, if they're starting to sort of do promotion in July at Comic-Con. And yeah, I can't wait for the next season. I thought that the first season was incredible. Maybe didn't get enough attention as it should have done. I thought it was kind of up there with Severance, really. So I'm very excited for the next season. And yeah, hopefully in a couple of weeks we'll have a trailer to pour over the details of.
Speaking of Apple Originals getting attention, this morning as we record, the Emmy nominations were announced. And Apple Originals got a lot of attention in the nomination realm. 72 total for Apple Originals, an incredible showing. Too many for us to list in full here, but we're going to give the highlights of the nominations. Starting with The Morning Show, which received 16 nominations total. Really incredible, including Outstanding Drama Series, Lead Actress for both Jennifer Aniston and Reese Witherspoon, Supporting Actor for Billy Crudup, Mark Duplass, and John Hamm, and 4 Supporting Actress nominations for Nicole Beharie, Greta Lee, Karen Pittman, and Holland Taylor, and a Guest Actress nomination for Marcia Gay Harden.
Basically, the entire cast got nominated, I think. I don't know if there's anyone missing from there, but if you're that missing person, you'd feel quite bad, wouldn't you? One that I was incredibly happy to see. People who know me know I'm a huge fan of Slow Horses. I genuinely think it's the best thing on Apple TV+. I think it's one of the best shows out there. It kind of got ignored. Well, I think it pretty much got ignored totally last year, which I was very surprised to see. Even Gary Oldman didn't get a look in. But this year it was nominated for Outstanding Drama Series, Best Lead Actor for Gary Oldman, Best Supporting Actor for Jack Lowden, Best Guest Actor for Jonathan Pryce, as well as Directing and Writing. And I think totally well deserved. I don't think that potentially they've really got much of a chance. There's some tough competition from both the morning show, and their main competition is probably going to come from Shogun, which was an exceptional TV series and was very popular, one of FX's biggest series they've ever had to date in terms of viewers. So I think it's going to be tough for them to win anything. I would love to see someone win something, though. Jonathan Pryce is my friend's uncle, so I'd like him to win. So that's a lot.
Very cool.
So I'll keep my hand in for him, as well as Slow Horses getting those well-deserved nominations. Palm Royale also racked up 11 nominations, including Outstanding Comedy Series, Lead Actress for Kristen Wiig, and Supporting Actress for the great Carol Burnett, which I was interesting to see, actually. I actually haven't watched Palm Royale yet. It's sort of on my list behind several other things to catch up on. But the response was very mixed on that series, so it was interesting to see so many nominations for that show. But obviously the voters liked it, so it's got a bunch of nominations.
Yeah, I think they were well deserved. I was a big fan of Palm Royale during its run and excited to see it come back, and happy to see so many nominations there. Of course, fingers crossed for them. But the series that stuck out to me the most, that made me very happy to see nominated for so many Emmys, was Lessons in Chemistry, which was my series of the year last year on Apple TV+. I loved it so much. It got 10 nominations, including Outstanding Limited Series, Lead Actress for Brie Larson, Supporting Actor for Lewis Pullman, Supporting Actress for Asia Naomi King, and its opening title sequence was nominated as well, which I think is well-deserved. You mentioned how Apple TV Plus puts so much focus on the title sequences, and seeing it nominated in this way, I think that's paying off, and it really does contribute to the quality of the shows.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, I also loved Lessons in Chemistry. I'm not afraid to say that it left me in absolute floods of tears several times. I'm not someone who generally cries in real life, but put a sad movie or a TV series in front of me, I'll just be destroyed. So yeah, that was a great series, and I love the title sequence also. A couple of nominations, well deserved, are for Lead Actor in a Limited Series for Hijack for Idris Elba, and Lead Actress in a Comedy Series for Maya Rudolph in Loot. Both well deserved. I think not a surprise really to see Maya Rudolph in there. She's a critical darling, well deserved comedy icon. So great to see her get nominated in there alongside Britain's own Idris Elba. Always nice to see.
Other Apple Originals nominated include Physical, Sugar, The New Look, Silo, Masters of the Air, The Reluctant Traveler, Girl State, Steve, Hannah Waddingham Home for Christmas, and of course, Carpool Karaoke. The Apple Music Halftime Show featuring Usher also received 3 Emmy nominations, in addition to the iPhone 15 album cover ad being nominated for Outstanding Commercial. The 76th Annual Emmy Awards will be presented live on September 15th. Congratulations to all the nominees, and best of luck. That brings us to this week's Apple TV releases. Today sees a new episode of Sunny and the penultimate episodes of Presumed Innocent and Land of Women. Once again, I cannot wait for the finale next week of Presumed Innocent to find out what happens. Friday sees the premiere of new Apple Original series Lady in the Lake, and our highlight of the week, Omnivore. Friday Night Baseball this week at 7 p.m. Eastern, you've got 2 games to watch: the Detroit Tigers at Toronto Blue Jays and the San Diego Padres at Cleveland Guardians. Saturday and Sunday, MLS Season Pass continues. Next Wednesday, for listeners, just to kind of put it on your radar, the MLS All-Star Game begins at 8 p.m. Eastern on MLS Season Pass. We know that everyone doesn't listen to the show as soon as it comes out, and so we want to go ahead and give you a little bit of forewarning there to put the MLS All-Star Game on your calendar. In terms of extras this week, we have a new shot on iPhone 15 Pro short film called Suerte. This is a very cool short film shot in Spanish. It's got some magical realism elements, some very cool practical effects and water effects. And of course, it's all shot on the iPhone 15 Pro, which is still incredible what they can get out of that camera. So very cool to see. There's also a making of featurette that's worth checking out. There's a special featurette for new Apple Original Kids and Family Series Me called Between Takes. We'll link to that in the show notes. And there was a really interesting interview that I wanted to share this week on Upgrade, hosted by Jason Snell and Mike Hurley. They got to speak to Phil McCarty and David Dong, who are the writers on What If, an Immersive Story, that new app on Apple Vision Pro where you get to enter the Marvel Universe and collect the Infinity Stones. It really was an interesting look behind the scenes of how you craft a story like that in this new environment with this new technology. And so if you haven't heard that interview, be sure to check that out. We'll link that in the show notes as well.
Not available in the UK yet. The Marvel What If experience on Vision Pro. Not available in the UK for some reason.
Wow.
If you're listening, Marvel and Apple, please put it on the Vision Pro. I don't know why it's not on there yet, please, in the UK. Thank you.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that would help with the content problem you were talking about. It really is a great experience.
Yes, exactly.
Last week, Sigmund got to share his experience of going to see Fly Me to the Moon in theaters. Well, this past weekend, I got to see it because it came out in my area. So I wanted to share just a little bit about the film. But first, I wanted to ask you, Jonathan, have you had a chance to check out Fly Me to the Moon?
Unfortunately, I haven't. My cinema trips are a little bit limited these days with work and childcare. But I will certainly be checking it out on Apple TV Plus. Big fans of the two leads. I think it seems like a really interesting story. So yeah, very keen to check it out. But I'm keen to hear your thoughts. What did you think of it?
Well, I totally feel you on not being able to get out to the theaters as much. Being a fellow father of a young child, this was my first time going to the theater alone with my wife since our son was born.
Wow.
Which has been almost a year now. And it was actually for my birthday. I asked if we could go and see this film. And, I thought it'd be a good opportunity to get some time in the theater and also see this movie that I've been wanting to check out. But like you, for a lot of these Apple Original films, I've had to wait until they get on streaming, which thankfully isn't too terribly long. But I will say for this one, if you get a chance to see it in theaters, it's worth a watch. Like you said, it's got some really great stars, Scarlett Johansson and Channing Tatum, who are just so compelling and have a ton of chemistry with one another and really just make it a fun ride for everybody involved. Most of Apple's theatrical releases thus far, at least the wider theatrical releases, have been more prestige films, more award bait. And I don't mean that in a negative way at all. It's kind of a different type of film with a different type of audience, I would say.
Yeah.
And this is very much not that. I wouldn't be surprised to see it nominated maybe for some awards in terms of costuming and set design because it is a period piece, but it's meant for a much wider audience, I would say. It's just a fun period piece about space and this very silly conspiracy theory that this is one scenario where, maybe it could have gone down this particular way. But again, Scarlett Johansson and Channing Tatum, they do such a great job in this as the leads. I really buy into their dynamic. There's this level where there's a little bit of obviously chemistry between them, but at the same time, they're at odds in terms of what they're trying to do at NASA and accomplish. Channing Tatum's character is very by the book and just focused on the mission, whereas Scarlett Johansson's character is all about branding and getting the name out there and spinning. Very interesting combination there. But also in terms of performances, I have to say Woody Harrelson looks like he's having the time of his life in this movie. He really is just having a ton of fun with this very strange role that he gets. And he just pops in every once in a while, and it's a lot of fun.
I feel that Woody Harrelson is always having the time of his life, though. He just seems like a super good vibes guy, someone you'd love to hang out with. But yeah, that's. I'm looking forward to seeing Woody Harrelson. I didn't realize he was in this film, so that's another selling point for me for sure. You've actually put in the show notes. You've put Channing Tatum's wardrobe. So do you wanna explain that?
Well, I mostly just want to say that I'm jealous of Channing Tatum's wardrobe from this. The costuming is incredible in this film. It's 60s, but it's kind of elevated 60s. And he has these sweaters. They're all the same style, but different color combinations. And it's just a really interesting look that I hadn't seen before. And it makes me wish that I could pull off stuff like he does, because it's just it's really good wardrobe. The sweaters are awesome. And it also, I think, just kind of contributes to his character and his seriousness, that he just has a bunch of these sweaters that are all the same style, just different colors, so that he can be wearing something different each day but not have to really think about it.
Right.
And I just thought that was a little interesting look into his life. Another interesting look kind of into his mentality. It was a small moment in the film, not really relevant to like the entire plot or anything like that, but it was one that stuck out to me, where Channing Tatum's character is having a conversation with another character about the relationship between science and faith, and kind of how those two things can mesh, because this film is all about space and the space race and the pursuit of getting to the moon. And it also puts you very much in the mindset of the people of the time who, this had never been done before. And some people doubted whether or not it should be done or whether or not it was possible. And of course, there's just all kinds of different perspectives on it. But there's just a very honest conversation about what going to space does to people and how it kind of just opens up your eyes to the wonders of the universe and makes you appreciate life and the world more. And I just thought that was a really beautiful, just small moment, but one that I personally enjoyed and really took away from the film with me. So I'll just say it's an awesome collective viewing experience. You're going to laugh a lot as an audience. You're going to have a lot of fun. I think this has the potential to draw in quite a crowd if they can get the marketing and, get the name out there and just get the trailer and the poster in front of people. I'll have to say, I do think this is breaking out of the typical Apple TV Plus audience a little bit, because the person sitting in front of me, when the Apple logo came up at the beginning of the film, leaned over to the person next to them and said, "Wait, Apple's doing movies now?" So they ended up there having no idea that it was made by Apple. So that's very cool. Yeah, I really think this one, it could have a broad appeal. It feels like it's kind of doing what Argyle tried to do in getting a wider audience in front of one of Apple's original films. But I feel like this really could accomplish that, because it's very fun and digestible, and one that I could see someone just seeing the poster, seeing who's on it and what it's about, and immediately walking into the theater and buying a ticket for it. And so I hope people will. And it's the type of movie that it's going to be great to watch on streaming when it comes, but if you get a chance to see it in theaters, I highly recommend it.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Well, we like to end every episode with our up next picks, recommendations for people to check out. Jonathan, what have you got for us this week?
Right, this week I'm bringing along an old friend of ours, someone who used to write with me and you and Sigmund at Screen Times back in the day, a guy called James Lees, who really super nice guy, really into his films, into his sport a lot as well. And so he's jumped on the newsletter bandwagon. He has now got a Substack. It is ballsonfilm.substack.com. And basically every week, James is writing about sports movie or sport-themed TV shows, generally tending towards American sport, but he's open to suggestions for films. So if you've got a good suggestion, be sure to drop it in the comments. I'm not someone who's really watched a lot of sports films, but I've checked out a couple that he's been writing about in sort of anticipation of the newsletter coming out about them, and I've really enjoyed it. It's sort of opened up a new sort of avenue of viewing for me. James has a really nice way of writing, actually. He's just very engaging, and his newsletter's fun. It's kind of a review of the film, but then he's going into little tidbits and anecdotes. Then he's pulling up a couple of amusing reviews from online, which are always amusing. And it's a thoroughly enjoyable newsletter. So that's my recommendation for this week. Our good friend James Lees, his newsletter Balls on Film, which is over on Substack, and we can just drop a note in the show notes for that.
I love James's newsletter. I appreciate especially those reviews that he links to and gives screenshots of, because they're hilarious. There's some really interesting opinions about sports films out there.
For sure.
I have not seen a lot of the films that he's covering, but I love getting a perspective on them from his point of view. And he has a wide range. He covers modern films and throwback films, and he's actually getting ready to start a Ted Lasso rewatch in a spinoff of the newsletter called The Clubhouse. So he's kind of going twice weekly there, I think, and starting to expand even more into, of course, the Apple TV Plus realm, which is of interest to us. But a great read, something I look forward to every week. It really just feels like when I read that newsletter, I'm just having a chat with my buddy James and learning about something that he watched and enjoyed. So definitely worth checking out. Do follow the link in the show notes there. My pick this week, I'm actually doing a music recommendation. Jonathan, I was a huge fan growing up of the Punk Goes series of albums. Are you familiar with these? Like Punk Goes Pop or Punk Goes Crunk?
No.
You're looking at me like you have no idea what I'm talking about.
No. I thought you said Punko. I was getting confused. I thought you meant the Funko, like figures, but no, you're Punk Go. Okay, do explain.
Yeah, so they're cover albums where punk bands will cover different genres. And, they'll do a pop album and just do pop punk versions of all these different songs. And they've just done so many different iterations of this over time. And when I was a teenager, I listened to all of them because I just loved pop punk music, but I also found it as a good entry point to more popular music and things that maybe my friends were listening to. So I've always loved covers and just hearing different artists take other approaches to other people's work. Disney is now getting into this game. They've got a new album coming out called Disney's A Whole New Sound. And so they're inviting punk and rock and alternative artists to reimagine classic Disney songs in these alternate genres and kind of just put a new spin on it. And it started this past weekend with Simple Plan's cover of Can You Feel the Love Tonight from The Lion King. It's just incredible. It's so many things that I love. The style of music, of course, I love. I've been a fan of Simple Plan forever. And The Lion King is a film that meant so much to me growing up. And I enjoy listening to the soundtrack to this day. So to hear it in a new way, just with a different perspective, it's a lot of fun. And there's more to come from this. It's going to be a whole album eventually, but they're just rolling out this one single right now. But if you are a Disney fan, if you like pop punk music, if you were into the Punk Goes series back in the day, do check out Disney's A Whole New Sound. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I wouldn't consider myself a fan of either of those sort of things, but I'm checking this out. This sounds bizarre and very fun. So yeah, I'm definitely going to check this out. I may hate it, but I may love it. You never know. I'm gonna check it out for sure.
Well, I have to say, I played it for my son. Just the first time I listened to it, I just had him with me, and he was bopping along with me to it. So
nice.
I guess he's got that same taste as I do. Of course, we'll link to both of those recommendations as well as everything else we talked about in the show notes. But that's all for this week. So we want to thank everyone so much for listening. We always welcome your feedback, so follow us on Apple Podcasts, leave us a rating and review there. You can contact us on social media via the links in the show notes. You can email the show or send us an iMessage to magic@macstories.net. Jonathan, thank you again so much for joining me this week. It's always a pleasure to have you on. Where can people find you online?
Pleasure to be here, Devon. Yeah, you can find me writing at macstories.net, a column in the weekly newsletter. I recently, this week, I just published my preview of WatchOS 11. So if you're interested to find out what's coming in the next iteration of WatchOS, do be sure to check that out amongst the other great writing on that site. You can find me on Mastodon. I am at Jonathan Reed at techhub.social. And you can find me also on Threads, where I post a little less frequently, at Aylward Reed. That's AYLWARDREED.
Very cool. Well, thank you one more time for joining us. It's always great to have you. Sigmund will be back next week with special guest host Chris Lawley to discuss Time Bandits and more. So until then, stay safe, watch some Apple TV, play some Apple Arcade, and have a great week.